Globespan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that have taken a side, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation building. Globespan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana.
This land is our land now.
As the world turns on its axis, bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globespan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
We ain't giving up no river that belong to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain.
Good evening, all of our brothers and sisters, all of our fellow Guyanese. Welcome again to one of Globespan 24/7 Wednesday program. As we are getting started tonight, we would like to invite you to subscribe on the YouTube button and also share the program through Facebook. Help us to be able to get this program across so that we can continue to have a discussion that will be beneficial to all. Globespan, a platform that's entered its 7th year offering a community service for all voices. The platform invites all political parties, civil and religious leaders to share their opinions and address their concerns. You could contact Globespan 24/7 at 631-782-8694 or our email support@globespan247.com. On tonight's program, we were talking a little about the current affairs, particularly as it relates to Iran. We'll talk a little about grading the opposition party and then go mainly into the discussion regarding the children welfare issues. With us tonight is no other than Mr. GHK, public advocate. Being with us, he's become a cornerstone of Globespan and certainly has been a voice, mainly through his pens, that, for the people addressing many different issues and concerns. On tonight's program, we are very grateful to Mr. Colin Haynes. He's no stranger to Globespan 24/7. He was willing to fill in very quickly for Mr. Christopher Ram, who had a little sudden medical challenge earlier this morning, so he wasn't feeling well. Therefore, Colin Haynes, who has been on Globespan many times before, mainly comes from the health department. He, of course, has agreed to fill in with us. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Welcome to both of you. I will like to start tonight on the geopolitics with Iran, but Mr. GHK, I'll ask you to lead off. Not mainly about, I know everyone is in tune with the news, what's happening there, the Strait of Hormuz, etc., but mainly the effects that the Middle East situation with Iran is having on Guyana per se, particularly, of course, the increase of oil. How is that going to affect your economy, and what advice you would have for our people of Guyana?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here, Mr. Haynes. It's been a long time. Good for you to join us.
Hello.
My fellow Guyanese, our viewers, listeners. It's cold over there, it's warm here, and it's warm in the Middle East. It's very hot in the Middle East. War. Call it by whatever name you want, but at the end of the day, it is war. And war is never a good thing. And because of the pressures, as most of you would know, if not everyone, on the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran's surprising for some resilience and resistance in the face of massive attacks on its infrastructure, loss of life, that has sent oil prices spiraling. To say it in a regular way, and it's a bad thing to say, war is good for oil. War is good for oil prices because supplies become constricted. And so when that happens, oil prices skyrocket. We've seen it touch, the futures touch at 100 and slightly above, and then it settles down. And then it goes up back again. Because the tides of war have been shifting here. Mr. Singh asked about the impact on Guyana. 20% of the world's supply is being bottled up by that strait being partially, if not mostly, blocked. Guyana currently is producing 900,000 barrels of oil daily. It is going to get some additional monies, millions, from that rise in price. How long it's going to stay there, we don't know. So the positive side for our economy is that the higher oil prices are, and the longer they stay there, that money comes into our natural resource fund in New York. So that's the one side. We must remember also that oil is connected to so many things. Among the byproducts of oil, there are 6,000 and counting byproducts of oil. Some surprising things from chemotherapy to plastics to what have you. What will happen in Guyana? I do not know what the government will do in terms of gasoline prices. Is it going to cover for us? But what does it do about electricity prices? What does it do about transportation prices? That's a very elusive one, because the moment that we see something gives here in terms of the impact, the downside of higher oil prices on the economy here, from bread to you name it, it's going to go up. People are going to have to pay more to transport their bread, perhaps to produce their bread. I just took something as basic as bread, as everyday as bread, and it could be flour that has to be milled or anything else. And even those who are not impacted, prices will go up, and that will cause some additional hardships for Guyanese. Some money may come to them eventually, but day to day, week by week, they're going to feel the pinch once the impact, the negative impact of those prices reach into our country, our people who are already fighting a losing battle with cost of living, with rising prices. I think that the odds are there for them to get really, really squeezed. Unless the government comes in and say, this is happening, the downstream effect could be these, so therefore we are taking some preemptive action, we are taking some protective action. If that doesn't happen, or it's only minimal, the pain could be even higher for citizens in this country.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. GHK. Certainly, Colin, there's a windfall in terms of the increased prices towards the Guyanese treasury. Naturally, with us now close to what is it, 1 million barrel a day, certainly have quite a bit of a windfall, which could be short term, but it's also a benefit. It's the positive coming out of this. What's your comments on how this affects Guyana, particularly?
Well, good night, Noah. It's a pleasure to be on the show. JHK, how are you doing? It's good to be back. I think we're seeing a lot of history here, looking at this war. For one, I think we're seeing and most folks may not have be able to see this, or it hasn't been properly analyzed, but we're seeing a different kind of wars being fought. I think you're seeing a big superpower is fighting, and then on the other hand, you're seeing sort of a smaller capability, but a very strategic and focused war is being fought by the Iranians. There is global implications for all of this, and I think for us, yes, GHK said it right. We're going to make a lot of money. That's the bottom line. The price of oil is now higher, so whatever percentage we're getting deposited into the Fed bank, the money's going to be more. And the other part is this: it's the common man. When we having these discussions, I know government officials, many other people like to talk about how great the country is going to do and how much money they're going to make. But the reality is 60% poverty rate. And with rising prices, which will happen because we're seeing rising gas prices at the pump here in the US. Gasoline is an average of $4 to $5 a gallon. In some places like California, my friends are telling me it's about $8 a gallon. Um, Very expensive. And so now, if you look at in terms of industry, manufacturing, that goes up as well. And then now, how does this equate to Guyana? Ships and cargo and planes and all of that. The rising prices, every time prices are raised, they don't just suck up, business doesn't suck up this or, take this in as the government would do for subsidize. But they're going to throw it back on the consumer. So Guyanese can see anywhere between, if this war continues, and even if it stops now, within the next month or three, they're going to see rising prices. Now, we're dealing in a post-COVID environment where prices were already risen. You already would have also seen tariffs, right? So there were tariffs being placed on specific countries. Then the President Trump now would put a global tariff on everybody now because after the Supreme Court says, hey, you can't do that. So there's going to be prices, and to think about the poor mother, and I'm always thinking about the mother of three in Bartica because this is a real person. I know this person who's not, she's not making a lot of money. The mother of three is making below 120,000 as a teacher, and she's gonna have to deal with this price. And I mean, that is just not that mother alone, but that's for many mothers and fathers and families. So there is going to be a heavy price tag or a tax that our Guyanese people will be seeing in the next couple of months.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. So the takeaway from this is that there are going to be a financial windfall, but that's going to be short term. My numbers are saying about $100 million. For every $10 increase in the oil, there's going to be about $100 million income per month. But however, both yourself and Mr. GHK pointed out there are downstream effects, the effects of increase of inflationary effects. And of course, you feel, Colin, that it's going to have a direct impact on the poverty rate. Poverty rate has been, different numbers have been thrown around, sometimes 50, 52%. I see you said 60%. Treasury, naturally, clearly, we should not have any given our population rate.
Sure.
So hopefully that could be eradicated at some point. Let's switch a little to the opposition parties. Well, gentlemen, I have never seen such activity from opposition parties that I've been seeing in the public domain. They're very robust. They're out there with the people. They're out there with the issues, and they're certainly addressing and bringing to light, given the fact that social media is so prevalent in today's world, so much information that is literally spreading across Guyana. So, Mr. GHK, there are three opposition parties. Of course, you know who they are. What's your grade on them and any advice for them?
Well, let's start with APNU. The APNU has had a lot of movement. Well, it has tabled some motions in Parliament. I think under Terence Campbell, there has been some zeal, some energy, some fresh energy. So I must give that to the APNU, which has to be still smarting from its humiliation in the last elections, now about 9 months old. So, so that's one area. We'll come back to the grading in a moment, but I see some early movement that court cases included that points to an opposition APNU that is looking to rebound. And you rebound by connecting to the people. I have said this on this program and in other fora before, and I'll say it again. Social media is wonderful, and paper media is wonderful. But you've got to press the flesh. You've got to go to people and let them get a sense of if they can trust you, how much they can invest in you. And I think I'd like to see more of that from all three political opposition parties. The Win Party, it has, and we'll come to that, so I'll just skim over this quickly. It's been vocal, seems to be pretty adept at using social media technology and taking advantage of it. It has, but it's got this shadow hanging over it. And one of the things that I'm concerned about, and I think we should be concerned about, is does it have a succession plan? Has there been a conversation on a what if scenario, a worst case scenario, that their newly appointed leader of the opposition gets extradited? From my understanding, that has not happened. And so that's not a last minute thing. That thing has to be planned through as to how do we not only what's the line of succession, but what's our strategy, what are our tactics going to be? And then we have Miss Walton Desir, FGM. She's a she's a small party. She's the smallest of the three. So good ideas, youthful energy, and I think the opposition parties need to get themselves in the same room and hash out their differences. Together, they can be a stronger bloc. They can be a vocal group. They can be a vibrant presence in this country and give people hope. People who are dealing with poverty, whether it's 42% or 58 or 60 something. The bottom line is that people in Guyana, a great number of people, a great percentage of the people are struggling. They don't know how they're going to deal with next week, maybe even tomorrow. I would grade the APNU, 9 months after the election. It's taken us some time to get going. It's got a lot of cleaning of house to do. I would give it from between a C minus to a C plus. The Win group, I'm hovering here. Who's really there other than the leader with his appeal? Miss Primus happens to catch my attention, Mr. Pandey, and a couple of others, but I would like to, it would have been good to hear from the others here. So I'm saying overall, and this might be generous, they get a C there. Miss Walton Desir has not been heard from as much as I would like to, so I'm going to pass on her momentarily. Before we go forward, I want to say one more thing. We've talked about money for the more money from oil. With oil traveling to that height of $100 a barrel, and if things really tighten, it can go more because Iran's strategy is we're going to cripple the world's economy. We can't beat you with guns. We're going to beat you with economic warfare. So Guyana has to think, and it's a forlorn thought, about a windfall tax. 15%, 25%. Is that going to happen? Looks remote.
Right, right. So John Jones, 9682, the Trinidadian expert, said that Guyana have to put things in place or else Guyana will lose $9 million a day. I think he's referring to that windfall tax. That's how much Guyana could be making. I believe that's what John Jones is referring to. Well, regarding Colin Haynes' comment on poverty, I think Neville Sital, he certainly second you on that, but in a very concise manner. He says 242 Guyana dollars to one Yankee dollars. So that speaks volume in itself from Neville Sital. Um, There's some other comments, but I want to tell the viewers tonight, when we get to the core or the main part of our discussion tonight, which is children welfare, and it's circling around the events that took place recently, but of course there's probably been a length of other events that took place regarding teenagers, etc. I want to invite the viewers to please participate, post your questions, but at the same time, I prefer you also post recommendations. We are looking for a solution-based program at this point, rather than us just coming up with, questioning status quo. Let us look to change status quo. That's the objective here tonight. In any case, Colin, I know you have always been, and you probably want to, you've always been close to the opposition. Just to be very crystal clear, you have always been close to the AFC organization. But in terms of these three, Mr. GHK Apnu C minus C plus, just about the same for Win, and Ms. Desir, he passed on that. What's your thought? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I'm not really in, in focus of a grade. I think the main focus the opposition should be doing is to be able to hold the government accountable. And certainly we're seeing that, most of them are doing so. I think more than all the opposition, I think Win is doing a very good job at now using technology such as social media. When you see the opposition leader stands behind a house by a fat cat member of the PPP and how they've gotten this and so forth. I think those are revolutionary things. It's almost you're seeing this kind of Western approach, right, of being in opposition. And so I welcome that. I think that's a step in a good direction. However, I'd like to press that the opposition do more. I think there's so much more, and I think there's scope for a lot of more. Matter of fact, I think there's any single sector you look at Guyana right now, you could take the PPP down. The PPP can completely, let's talk about energy and let's talk about the blackouts. We talk about healthcare, we talk about education. There's just so much that they can do. And I think we now need to focus on those issues, make it issue based. And then in doing so, we educate the Guyanese people. Now, I think that, what I'd like to see more, and it pains me to see the division that's happening between the opposition. I don't think they could be. I mean, you are on the same side. Win, Apnu, the fighting that is happening between the two is appalling. It's appalling. It's very disappointing, because there's so much they can do together. With Win being the newcomer on the block, and Apnu being the more seasoned ones, they can work together. They can find ways to work together, because at the end of the day, this is not about the PNC getting back into power or Win elevating into power. This is about the Guyanese people. Ultimately, yes, we have those ambitions, but the Guyanese people have to be at the heart and soul of this. And when two oppositions are not talking and they're fighting and there's alleging, one alleging and the other and so forth, it really takes away from that heart and soul. And now also my appeal, lastly in this topic, is for the Guyanese people. Democracy doesn't is not something that starts just when you vote on throw your, put an X on a box. Democracy starts there, but it stops by the time you go around that 5-year cycle and you put that X again. Which means I wrote an article recently and I said that people must protest, they must reject, and they must demand that the government do better for their citizens. Because you're seeing citizens are getting victimized like no time
Yeah,
before, and so
right,
forth. So I think the people has a great responsibility in doing that,
right.
holding the government accountable.
Yeah, yeah, and to Mr. Shane Mark Tull, his comment is the opposition job is to hold the government accountable. So once again, to our viewers, the premise for this segment, institutional accountability and recommendation, it originated from a program a few weeks ago when a question was posed to Mr. Christopher Ram, that what is it can be done to improve our system, and then he pointed out in the institutional set up. So the plan for Globespan is that we would take different institutions and different weeks, talk about it. But again, we're not looking purely for criticism. We are looking for recommendations that we could probably pencil and put forward into the public domain, whoever picks up on it. And that also came from Timothy Jonas, who also suggested that we should really pen some of the recommendation that comes out of the Globespan program and put it in the public domain. I want to go to touch on another five minutes or so on this topic, 5 to 8 minutes if we can. And this I know is to the core of Mr. GHK Hart. I know that he has tremendous sentiments towards this and probably every other Guyanese. We had the BBC. This is going to lead straight into Starbuck News closing off. We had the BBC interview. That original panel was reconstituted. One of the very much credible reporters out there, Mr. Anand Prasad, was removed from that panel. But just if you could just take 2 minutes and talk about that, Mr. GHK, because we have a little video we want to show on Starbuck News as well.
The BBC came here, and so to talk about oil, and here we are, fair distribution of oil revenues. Oil revenues that we didn't have before, massive revenue. I think it's a fair question, and it clearly overwhelmed the question about regional security and Maduro's exit. The People's Progressive Party, as the party in government, certainly has a seat at the table. It has freest reign to choose its member, its panelists, its whomever. But it cannot go, it must not be given the room to go into who should be on the other panel, who should be the other panelists. And I think that is where I start to have some disconnect with this whole program, that was allowed. If I recall well, Miss Towner, Helen Towner, the producer for BBC, said, well, Mr. Prasad wasn't removed, the program was shut down, and that was the end of the consideration for panel members. But I think when you introduce a new panel, Mr. Anand Prasad, because for his work at Starbuck News as the editor-in-chief, should have been compulsorily must have been on that program. I'm hearing that the government objected strongly to his presence and some other person's presence because they're hostile. Well, so what? That is part of democracy. Hard exchanges. Once they're fair, once they're honest. I can tell you that there was another person who was actually on the threshold of being on the panel, and that was objected to. That name has not appeared in public, but it's a name that is known by most Guyanese. I will not disclose that name. That's a conversation. So when that happens, my fellow panelists, listeners, the panel becomes tainted. The question is moot. You're not having a straightforward and a principled discussion anymore about the distribution of massive oil revenues. What you have are artifices, and that is what we saw when you have a government minister and his entourage there cheering. Okay, I'll go along with that.
Right.
But then heckling the others, then heckling the other panel. This program is going before the whole world. So my thought about the program started off on the wrong foot. It continued that. It was allowed to go to that level, and then we just had what we had. And that's not democracy. That is somebody trying to impose their will or their way or their narratives on everything else.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. GHK. And just before we go to the video, Mr. Shane Mark posted again, when using social media is very effective, the opposition needs to work together. The initiative should always be people focused. Christopher Ram, is not feeling well, but I think his fingers are still working very, very active because he sent in a comment here. He said, this is relating back to the previous discussion regarding the combined opposition. We have to do more than hold government accountable. We must table bills, bring legal action, and make demands of the government. That's from Mr. Christopher Ram, who hopefully will be back with us in a few weeks from now. Just before I go to Colin, I just want to, it's a 2-minute video on Starbucks News. I think the onus are on us as Guyanese to recognize the contribution and certainly extend our appreciation to all of those at Starbucks News. Devon, you want to go to that video, please?
At first light, the city wakes, and so does its story. For decades, Stabroek News has carried that story, unflinching, independent, and free. From the bustle of the market to the quiet of the hinterland, its reporters listens Stabroek News, a voice for Guyana. At first light,
Devon, I thought it was a 2-minute, but I didn't realize that that's short. But thank you, Devon. Colin, what would you want to say? Just take 2 minutes on this. Definitely, we'll be missing Starbucks News.
Yeah, as a frequent commentator, I want to take the opportunity, if I could take this 2 minutes and just say that I'm very, very appreciative of all the efforts Starbucks News have done over the years. Growing up in Guyana, it was a paper that I read. Matter of fact, I could remember one of the first articles I've written, and I look in the newspaper. I was in Guyana, I saw that my article was in Starbucks News. So, free press is very important. It's a cornerstone of democracy. And I think if government is really serious about free press, which they aren't, by the way, and they would, you would never let this happen. As it relates for the BBC News service, this is a problem. It's a real problem when, you tend to say that you are, promoting free speech, and then you're trying to, as JHK saying, trying to make an artificial out of this. And there's some few culprits who are trying to do that. And I think it's very distasteful. And like I said, I think the only way our country could move forward is the people have to demand better. They have to demand better from the government.
Thank you for that, Colin. And just for our viewers, if you are in the Richmond Hill area, 10306 Liberty Avenue, Curry Roti Box. They serve both Guyanese and Trinidadian style. They also do catering. So please, Curry Roti Box located on 103rd Street on Liberty Avenue. Please contact them 347-238-2204. They could do all of your catering. And then the other section of Curry Roti Box is all from one supplier or buyfromone.com. Buyfromone.com, they ship your Guyanese, West Indian food, groceries, and pastries to all US states, all the way out to California, Florida, Las Vegas, Pennsylvania, Georgia. You could get all your 7 curries, you could get all your duck curry, your rotis, Guyanese bread, meat, and groceries. Go on buyfromone.com. They accept all credit cards, and they also accept Snap EBT cards. So take advantage of your West Indian food and groceries. So buyfromone.com. I want to switch to the main part of our program tonight, which the focus point is children welfare. Of course, our youths, the demographics are telling us that youths 15 years or younger makes up like 24% of our population. We have another 21% of the population is from 15 to 24, which within, I suppose the majority of them will come into voting age within the next 3 years or so. So definitely this is an area that we need to stress, an area that we need to focus on. And again, I really want to contribute this part of the program to Mr. Christopher Ram. It was his comments that brought us to looking at different ways we could make recommendation for the institutions. 15-year-old girl pregnant, passed away. We had, Miss Alina Pretum. We had Tiana Chapman stabbed. We had the Devin, do you have any videos or any pictures that we could go to so the audience could get to feel the gravity of some of these issues that we are facing?
I think he's posting the pictures. I'm seeing them.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, good. Yeah, so they could see. We're not able to see that in full picture, but Mr. GHK, this is our future generation. This is an institution, children welfare, I think is governed on the Minister of Human Resources, Dr. Vindhya Prasad. What's your feelings? I mean, what would you say as recommendations and areas here that we need to kind of strengthen up?
You're looking at the face of the future. One is gone. Miss Chapman has been stabbed 25 times. And you're also looking at the face of Guyanese pain. One dead, one seriously wounded. And how many more that we don't know about because of fear, because of circumstances that are prevented from coming out. A little context here, folks. This child that is dead, Miss Pritam, Alina Pritam, she was raped, allegedly, by her father.
Hmm.
I expected that to be all over the news. And when that is sort of so subdued, what else is involved there? In both instances, she's now dead, and they found her dead, or they found her close to dying. What went on there? What is responsible for that? Emotional trauma, additional interference? She was back in the home. We don't know. We don't know. But this we know. Why was she there? Why was she in that house? Miss Anne Green, retired Child Protection Agency commissioner, certainly an expert voice. She said, our people have credentials, but are they qualified to do the job? The procedures that had to be followed from her vantage point, it doesn't appear that they were. The protections that Miss Pritam should have had, maybe the other Tina Chapman also, because medical practitioners, in the instance of underage children, have a duty to report that to the police. It has to get to the Child Protection Agency. Where did the chain crack? Where did our procedures fall through, or they were not robust enough? If our procedures have loopholes, my recommendation, they have to be closed, and the policy has to be internally that those, whether it's in the police or the Ministry of Social Protection or the Child Care Agency, Child Protection Care Agency, that there has to be penalties. We have to hold people accountable. Yes, we can have new systems. Yes, we can have new policies. Yes, we can have new procedures and new personnel. But unless we hold people accountable and have them make those systems and policies and procedures mean something, we're going to have these programs and we're going to be talking about these things. Now, I want to make this point here. Before I make a point about the rights of the Child Commission, I want to make this point here, and you'll see a continuum. In the Mohammed's extradition case, his reporting log is not around. It can't be presented in court, or it wasn't available to be presented in court. In the case of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the correspondence log is not quite where it should be. And the permanent secretary is on the hot seat there. According to the defense counsels, It appears as though some entries were made after the fact. This is the most watched case in Guyana, and this is what is happening. So if you notice, whatever procedures were in place and it had to be followed to the T, in the case of a man facing extradition, a leader of the opposition no less, there is that gap. In the case of a child who was allegedly raped and now dead, and Miss Chapman stabbed 25 times, what, also underage, where were the gaps there and what was done about that? So our procedures need to be revised, tightened, and they need to be implemented. If we don't have the right people, we get rid of them and we get people who can do this job and raise the standards on them and ourselves. Now, I'm going to raise the standards on presidents. This came to me by default, almost at the last moment. The Rights of the Child Commission, ladies and gentlemen, listening, viewing, since the year 2013, when that term expired, there hasn't been a Rights of the Child Commission. 13 years later, we are wringing our hands and wailing in public over these two young ladies and others that we don't know at this point. Look at this. The Ramutar administration, the David Granger administration, the first Irfan Ali administration, and 9 months into the second Irfan Ali administration, PPP government, and we do not have an operational, functional Rights of the Child Commission. I mean, what games are we playing? How serious are we when for 13 years, not 13 months, which is bad enough, for 13 years we have that out there vacant. We can't find people, or we don't want to find people, or we can't find the right people, or we can't find the right political people that comforts us. What happened there? And this is where we are.
Yeah.
An abomination.
Devin, this is a very nice piece for us to extract this week. I didn't even know, and I think most Guyanese probably don't even know of the Rights of Child Commission. I must be very very, very upfront. So I think it's a nice piece for us to circulate that, there is a commission that's supposed to have been existing that certainly should be more closer to these issues that we are facing, that these teenagers are facing. To your point, Mr. G.
That came to me by default, almost at the last moment, I must say.
At the last moment, yeah. But what we've been doing, Mr. GHK, is that we've been cutting small clips of these videos also and circulating it. And I think that piece there on Child Commission is a very nice piece for the Guyanese to be informed. And certainly I'm sure that, the government itself will probably look towards reconstituting it and making it effective, not just constituting it.
Well, if not now, then when? If not now, then when?
No, I'm
How
saying
many more have to die?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have all rights to express your emotions there on it. To your point about skill personnel, Mr. Neville Seatal wrote, too many unqualified, inexperienced, unskilled, untrained staff in government agencies he's saying for PPP political gains, but I would think that's a problem across the board. It's not only within the PPP, but also, of course, with the previous governments. The rights, Mr. John Jones wrote as well, the Rights of the Child Commission is there since Noah built the ark. I think he's just being a little funny. But giving
right.
Mr. Derek Bass there a plug, he's saying that brown paper chicken fried rice is taking Richmond Hill, Queens by a storm. So I think just to give him a plug. But Mr. Shane posted the closing of this publication in reference to Starbuck News is an assault on democracy. To all of our viewers, please, if you could make some recommendations that we can extrapolate from these programs and circulate, I think those will be extremely helpful to the general public, to the people of Guyana, similar to how Mr. GHK pointed out the rights of children commission. Taking away,
Mr. Singh,
Colin.
Mr. Singh, excuse me, before you go ahead, my apologies. If Guyanese really are serious and honest about freedom of the press, about a vibrant, independent press, and we are lamenting the tragedy of the exit of Stabroek News, let us each put some money into a pool that is transparent and controlled, and to have a replica, some replica of Stabroek News coming off the ground. I invite my fellow Guyanese, and I will help with that. And I'm sure there'll be others.
I mean, there's a better solution than that, GHK. Why
Go
don't the
right ahead.
government just pay Starbuck News what they owe them? The reason why Starbuck News is where they are today is because the government has not paid their bills. So there's a brazen attempt by the government to kill free press. I think we need to talk about that. Let's be. I'm not for being too sugarcoating about this, because this is very important for our people. And equally, I've said this and I've said it again. The people of our country are the most treasured assets in getting anything done. And if anything is supposed to happen, it's gonna have to be the people are gonna have to demand that. It's the people that put the government in power. I know the government now is acting like they can do whatever they want. And practically the reason they're doing whatever they want is simple, because you have a group of people who are not demanding better from the government. I'm sure if you got 1,000 people out there, sure, the government will probably say, well, we have to do something better. But when folks sit down, and just allow these things to continue, human nature dictates that they'll just do whatever they want to do. And I
Now,
just want,
Mr. Ram from his chair, he said about bills and legal action. I think he left out peaceful street protests. And a quick
correct,
comment on your thing. 84 or $86 million due. Yes, the government would, in good faith, should have paid that. However,
right.
that will only last so long. The bottom line is that we newspapers are going digital or have to go digital sooner or the other. So we have to factor that in. But I think the Guyanese people really need to get off their thrones and to be more active in their present and their future.
And if I could make a comment, Noah, about the trial, I mean, I think that, this is very hurtful. I think so many things have gone wrong here when you see something of this magnitude. There is the child, as Mr. JHK's Child Protection Services. There's the Ministry of Health, which, provides gender-based violence, training, counseling. And then there's also enforcement through the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, I remember, I saw somebody said that the Rights of the Child Commission has been around since then. I wrote a poem about, since I was like 5 or 10 years old, that was published in the Rights of the Child back in primary school. And so they have been functioning. It's been a functioning organization, up until, I don't know, when we decide not to happen. And equally, I like to say that when systems are not in place like this, you kind of have a situation where, government is saying very frankly to us, we don't care about your children. Most government officials, their children, this will never happen to them. Their children are protected by fancy vehicles, going to private schools and so forth. We have to talk the truth, right? We have to talk the reality. The reality shows in the actions, because you have all these. I don't think there's a problem with Guyana's laws. Yes, we could improve laws. And by the way, I think we need to have parliamentary committees on children and women. There's a select few of parliamentary committees, of which the government hasn't called one now. You have a parliament that is functioning without committees. People, if that's not the reason for us to be concerned, I think there is so much more for us to be concerned about.
Yeah.
None of your finances is being scrutinized by the parliament. None of your social programs are being scrutinized by the parliament. So we need to have a parliamentary committee that will now be able to take cases like this and investigate what has happened in the system, where the system has failed our children. And I have some other important things I want to say,
Yeah.
but I'll let you know you go ahead and Noah and continue on.
Yeah. Yeah. So Devin, while I'm asking Mr. GHK the question for him to comment, you could go ahead and show that video of those children coming out of the minibus. I think this is also very appalling in terms of where we at as a country and the type of level of life that some of our youths are facing. So Mr. GHK, Devin is going to show this video, but I want to pose this to you. And I kind of like bring it both sides together into this. I believe the minister, Dr. Vinya Prasad, when she made comments about systematic concerns, talking about prevention offices, community outreach, encouraging youths to make use of the available resources. Um, it's good words, Mr. GHK, but did you see anything specific, like any hotline was posted, any sort of guardrails that has been published that school teachers could report to parents or friends or peers could be reporting any guardrails? Did you see anything specific in that area, Mr. GHK?
I could be wrong. We see some positives for domestic violence victims. And certainly I would think that abuse of children falls within the realm of domestic violence, especially when it originates in the home, or
Mhm.
whether there's an abuse or there's a lack of protection in the home. And that mechanism has to be has to be developed, introduced, developed, refined, and constantly revised. We need people to oversee these things. Given the deplorable state of some of our watchdog or protective entities, sub-entities, our workers on the ground in the field, we need to have somebody looking over their shoulder, whether it's review committees, independent committees. Look, I have a fondness for this minister. I think she means well, but we are operating too much on sound bites in this country and reactions. What have we put into place to get in front of? We know we have an alcohol problem in this country. We know we have a domestic abuse problem. When you put those together, children somehow are going to be part of the scheme involving for being victimized. So therefore, how are we as a ministry, as a government, as the people holding the government's feet to the fire saying, well, why are we only there now? You mentioned hotline. What about the monitors? What about the teachers? What about the policemen? Where of the where is that responsibility? Where is that
Framework.
care?
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
need to think of something else, Nohar, before I let go.
Yeah.
What about the care for the 19 children? Was that 19 in Madhya?
Yeah,
How, when
yeah.
we desecrate their deaths and their memory by having a commission that is not worth spitting upon, a commission of inquiry. I mean, what sort of respect are we giving to children who are alive? What sort of regard are we giving to those who died and their people, their surviving parents? I mean, so there is a continuum here where people are not held accountable because those who should have been called to answer questions weren't. But here it is now that we are wringing our hands in public and lamenting the loss of one child and the scarring of another for life.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. GHK. Mr. Shane Mark wrote, we need comprehensive collective approach. Should be a collective of government, civic, and religious communities, which brings me to my next question or comment to Colin.
Mhm.
Colin, once the president was re-elected, among many of his announcements or initiative that he made comments on was, churches being more active in the communities. Certainly the NGOs also. We can't just only look to government for everything.
Right.
It'll be good to have a clear, decisive, comprehensive framework how to deal with these issues.
Mm.
But we need also our Guyanese people, our NGOs, our churches to be active and share their responsibilities with government. What would be your comment on that?
I agree. I think that you know, it's not the government, private, public-private partnerships are key because the church, particularly Guyana being, majority Christian base, has a great role. Now, I want to say that with within saying that, I think government has a importance of providing the resources, the tools, and environment. We're not saying that government has to do everything, right? But government has to be able to say, listen, we recognize that we can't do it alone, and we're going to pave the way for those things to happen. I can tell you countless organizations that both in the diaspora and in Guyana that are attempting to do stuff. And you know what happens? Guess what happens? They get shut out. Yeah. So the president to me is very disingenuous to say at times we need to include everyone. And he's just saying it because it sounds good. But then when folks come in to be able to help and assist, I got Guyana Medical Mission and those guys that want to come and help the country, and they just get shut out. The ministry can't even offer a vehicle to get around. You can't even get. Now, I wanted to go back to the issue, particularly because I'm solution oriented. When something happens of that magnitude, there should be a chain of reaction. And I think that's what GHK was saying. You first should have the police call, the police should call the Childhood Protection Service. At that same time, the rights of the child should be notified. Then you have the Ministry of Health is being called. So it should be a chain of reaction sequence of all the sectors involved in a child. Even let's say agriculture, you might think about how does agriculture fit into this? If there needs to be something that deals with food or whatever the case may be, and I'm just saying this arbitrarily, but all sectors that are involved, they need to have this chain reaction. That's how a system works. If you pick up the phone and you call the suicide hotline in the US and you said that, you want to, you think about harming yourself, you got police to check on you, you got social worker, you got so many people kick into action. That's what systems are. And now, more than any time else, Nohar and GHK, there's no excuse. We have the money. We have the technology now to be able to do this. And so coming back to that, if the government can create that environment, both with the processes in place and the leverage to be able to give organizations to do this. I've done research in Guyana a few years ago about organizations, NGOs, and their ability to function well. If you talk to at least maybe 10 to 15 organizations, there's a common theme. The common theme will be that the government does not provide the resources and the environment for us to do this. This was a UN study I did, and this was relating to HIV and the social, economic, and political factors. So again, what is the president talking about?
Well, I mean, certainly we need to have these public discourse and definitely include the churches, the community, the teachers to be able to craft a document that could be solution based. Once again, I want to say to all of our viewers, our objectives at Globespan is to maintain a discussion with different viewpoints from all sides. We want to do this in a mature manner without condemnation. Certainly, everyone is entitled to their opinions, but we want to also be some sort of solution oriented. We are hoping that the information from these programs will be a catalyst for improvements and a positive changes for all Guyanese. Again, I want to appeal to each one of you, our viewers. If it is that you are a PPP supporter, if you are a APNU supporter, if you are a WIN supporter, or you just a supporter of a Guyanese cause, be active. There's nothing wrong in questioning each other. There's nothing wrong with you questioning status quo. There's nothing wrong with you questioning those that you prefer to be in government. It could only lead us into a better country. So I want to appeal to all of our viewers. Mr. GHK, let's close it off with your closing comments. Preferable to if you could list a few key items. You already did quite a bit. Um, the child, rights of child commission, and a few others. Um, Leave us with some, positive notes, some recommendations for government, for civic society, for NGOs. What would be some of your recommendations?
Well, I notice you said it is not wrong. I'm going to say it is a right. It is a right and a responsibility of every citizen, not just us around this table, through this forum. It is a right of every Guyanese. We can look to somebody else. We are looking to too many of us are looking to others. We have a right to hold our government's feet accountable. Well, look at the government. We have a minister who is a spiritual leader in perhaps the largest religious denomination in this country, who is the Minister of Social Protection. That should be worth something. We have a bishop who is another senior minister. That has to be worth something. I think we have a new member of parliament, he may not be a minister, who is a pandit. And if you got three of these spiritual presences, stalwarts, hopefully real, genuine stalwarts, who are about people, who are about the flock, then we should be having less and lesser of these conversations. Throughout tonight, we've heard about the responsibility of the people. We've heard from the people watching this program about collective. And what I'm hearing is unity, strength in unity. Yes, and the government should create the space. We're going to have to force the government to create the space. It's not going to happen. No government makes space available. And this government is a master of squeezing out whatever space there is. Look at Stabrook News. Look at people like me and others, including Mr. Ram, who's not here tonight. We wish him well. In that you raise your voice, you're one of few dissenting voices in civil society, and you get clobbered. My church has been attacked because of me. I have been attacked because of my beliefs. And what's the idea? What's the objective? To intimidate people like me into silence. Unless the government is about openness, unless we are about fearlessness, we the citizens, and unless we are about a mind that's full of the interests, the commitment to, I don't have to live in Guyana, the commitment to Guyana, to the poor Guyanese people from which I hail, then we are going to keep spinning our wheels. We're on a treadmill. So I say, Minister Prasad, Bishop Edgehill, use your good offices to make a difference in this country. I say to you, my fellow citizens, I recommend to you, let this be a recommendation, invitation to you to stop looking at others and start looking at yourself. How can I contribute and how can I make a difference? And I look at myself and say, yes, I'm doing a few things. What more can I do? Whether it's child protection, whether it's a free press, whether it's about democracy in action, whether it's about clean leadership and governance. And with that, I say thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Mr. GHK. And I just text Devon, asked him to replay that video of that girl being dragged through the streets. And I'm asking for that because I wanted to have an impact on our viewers. It's important that Guyanese are synthesized of what people are facing out there. And what was also disturbing is that video. I mean, all of them are disturbing. 30-something children in one minibus. And I don't know if any action was taken, Colin, on that. Before I ask you for a closing statement, I just also want to wish Professor Dr. Ivelaw Griffith. I know he's still recovering, and certainly we miss him on the program, and we'd love to have him back very soon as well. Colin, very disturbing indeed. Our oil nation, highest GDP per capita ratio, our debt ratio. I mean, beautiful languages coming in from so many different parts. Um, our, our um, our reserve funding is more than our external debts, but not counting the internal debt. So many great things, but then yet we look 15-year-old being killed, 15-year-old mother, 15-year-old being
Mm.
stabbed. These children, I mean, it's heart-wrenching for us as Guyanese. So I want you to also include the NGO in your closing comments, include the church, because they also need to be held responsible not responsible, but accountable as well, as much as we want to hold the government accountable. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so much of macroeconomical things we're doing great as a country. However, when it comes to the average person feeling that is where the problem is. And that's why we have 60% poverty. So personally, I don't care too much about the macroeconomics. Those things just look good outside of Guyana and looks good for conferences and stuff. But when I talk to that mother of three, I don't see that macroeconomics playing into. And then when I look at this video, which was heart-wrenching, it tells us really what the problem is. The problem is not the GDP per capita or the amount of oil we're going to make or the natural resource funds. It tells of a system that is failing its people. And yes, you're right that we can't just blame government for everything. Like I said before, the people ultimately have a say in this democracy, and they have a say for many reasons, which is organizing programs to get things done. And I've talked to those people, they do. We do it have it happen. But again, many of these organizations will tell you that they have their constraints and nothing can get done without funding. And so even businessmen like yourself, Noir, I think, you should play an active role as well. Use some of that dollars that you're making to be able to help these organizations to do well. We all have that responsibility, that civic responsibility to do. Now, barring the fact that we're doing well in Guyana, I want to sow the seeds that what we're seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg. I want to believe that we still have to address organ harvesting, which I believe is reaching Guyana already. I don't think nothing is not reaching. When I talk about organ harvesting, there are big mafia organizations that are coming, taking our children and taking their organs. And that's where you see a lot of kids are ended up missing these days. Now, the fact that Guyana is out there in the global stage, it invites both good people and bad people in. You also have things like children trafficking. Those are some stuff that we need to talk about. And how do we develop systems to handle that? Truancy in schools. Back in the days, we used to be scared to miss school because if you miss school, I heard there was a van used to come pick you up. They used to come look for you and that kind of thing. And those were systems that were put in place. But ultimately, I want to say this, that at the end of the day, there's a quote that I came up with, and it said that this was in response to a German Lutheran pastor who said that after Hitler had started to, persecute the Jews, and he was a pastor, he said, "Oh, nothing will happen to me." And the quote says, "First they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists. I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. And they came for the Jews. I didn't speak out again because I wasn't Jews. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak for me." I believe that at the end of this, we all have to play an equal role in demanding justice, systems in place, so that the country runs efficiently, effectively, and all the great oil wealth that we have can be channeled towards helping the growth and prosperity of Guyana.
Well, very deep, Colin. And just for some information, by the way, type of information, One of the fundamental beliefs that we have in our church, Colin, is that what is done in secret is rewarded by God, and what is done in public is rewarded by men. So we do charity trips to Guyana. We distribute bags, school bags through the church, hundreds of bags, but we don't put it on Facebook. We don't go out there. We do report back to the church that this is what we spend the money to. So to your comment that yes, we should be involved, we are involved.
Well, I wasn't talking about you only. I was talking about generally the business
Yeah, but I
community.
just want you to know why you wouldn't see it on our Facebook.
Okay.
As a matter of fact,
That's fine.
Colin, one
Mhm.
time the US government came in because I wrote a check of $35,000 to help free people in Africa and also to help build wells in Africa. These are things we don't publicize because, like I said, the Bible teaches us that what is done in secret versus what is done in public, and you post on Facebook, you get your reward from the public. Look, this is the starting of a segment that we want to continue in Globespan. We want to be able to take different institutions and being able to come up with solutions, recommendations, and of course, critical criticism of what's going wrong with it, so that we could be helpful in helping to build this nation. A lot is at stake. Tonight's program, we talked about the youths, what's happening with the teenagers, and certainly we want to be able to continue these type of segments. Mr. GSK, as always, thank you so much. Colin, you've been very good to Globespan, always ready to step in when we call upon you. Thank you so much.
You're
Speedy
welcome.
recovery to Dr. Ivelaw Griffith and also to Mr. Christopher Ram. To all our viewers tonight, thank you very much and have a good night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.